I guess, a little history. You say you have to know where you came from to know where you're going. So Lost Spirits has been going since 2010, but we were up in Monterey County to start. And we're trying to bring together molecular gastronomy, which is very innovative, with the art of distilling, which is very traditional. But we thought perhaps we could bend a few of those traditions in our pursuit of good booze, which we kicked off in 2012. It was our first release, a whiskey called Leviathan 1. And when that hit the shelves, it was the world's third most heavily peated whiskey at 110 ppm.
Wow.
For a little perspective, what you just had on the island, that's considered a heavily peated malt at only 50 ppm. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Now, 2013, that was the year that we really sort of popped up onto the radar in the spirits world with an experiment we ran. See, we wanted to know what would happen if we fermented with salt water instead of fresh. So given our proximity to Monterey Bay, and then a little trip to the beach, we harvested that Pacific Ocean seawater, hauled it back to the distillery, started a fermentation. What we learned was the salt would thicken the cell walls of the yeast, which allowed them to survive at higher alcohol percentages and ferment longer.
That's fascinating.
Really cool, right? Well, we called the resulting expression umami, and it got a 94-point rating in Jim Murray's Whiskey Bible, which is amazing because that put it in the top 5% of whiskeys worldwide. Now, 2014, that was a very exciting time for us. We halted all production and closed the old distillery forever. This way. So you might be curious what we got ourselves into in 2014.
Yeah.
We'd run another experiment, but this time we were playing around with rum, and this rum was showing really unique properties, but it needed verification, so we sent a little sample to a lab for GCMS testing. It's gas chromatography, mass spec.
Okay.
What it does is analyze the molecular composition of a given sample. So in this case, we got back the resulting chromatogram that showed the chemical signature of a 20-year-old rum. We'd matured it in a mason jar on a tabletop in 6 days.
That's incredible.
So that required a little more research. We shut down the old distillery to focus on the R&D. The team relocated to Silicon Valley, and about 2 years later we had the first scaled version of our tech, or 1.0, if you will. And of course the lawyers took over. There were patent filings, licensing negotiations. Really good stuff, but we were distillers without a distillery. Adrift. Sober. It's very dark times.
Sounds horrible.
Well, with no other option, the 5 partners banded together and blackmailed their board. Got just enough money to build us a new distillery, but this time, LA's Arts District, because we'd heard it was a strange place. And we are a rather weird bunch, so it's actually been a perfect fit. And that's how we got here. And this has been nothing short of an adventure. But no adventure is complete without its twists and turns. And for us, the most recent came in January, but that tale is more appropriately told in the library. Yes, joining our guests. So if you take a closer look at the bottles on the shelves, you'll notice that they are filthy. But this isn't the usual dust that we accumulate around these parts. It's actually soot. Now, on the morning of January 18th, we came into work and found the fire department. And they said something electrical. Yeah, it was an old warehouse, old wiring. What they found was a little side table that was just burnt to a crisp. But the smoke damage was unreal. And just like that, we found ourselves back at square one. Again. So it was an opportunity in a strange way. And we're a bunch of cockeyed optimists, so we got right back to work. Because, the old distillery wasn't without its issues. And this sort of forced us to refocus our energies onto something that we had only just recently slipped into our back pocket. The old distillery was small. Wasn't really designed for the amount of people we had coming through, so our tours were very fast. Only about 75 minutes start to finish. Just wasn't enough time for people to really relax and enjoy the spaces, and explore the environments, which is a darn shame if you ask me. Not to mention, our equipment wasn't really built for larger scale production. Our own gift shop was notoriously understocked. It's embarrassing. People say that's a wonderful problem to have, but it's still a problem. So it was just about a year and a half ago now that we had decided to build a new distillery in a place with more room to grow. New lab, but most importantly, it was time for 2.0.
Really
Here,
next
the topic of fire does actually segue rather nicely into one of our favorite failed experiments. you may know, there's a little bit of a pissing contest in the industry as to who can create the world's most heavily peated whiskey. And the current title holder is Bruichladdich with their Optimore series. It clocks in at 309 ppm. Right? It's a beast. So we thought maybe
It's a bite of burning peat moss.
maybe we could go a level next. So we started with the old pressure cooker,
Yeah.
loaded it up with some Canadian peat moss. Charred remains remain. We doused it with navy rum and then dropped in a lit match. And once the smoke really got billowing, the lid went back on. We were able to funnel the smoke out through a thin copper pipe into the flask. Now inside the flask was the white dog for the whiskey you just drank, which means we were direct injecting that peat smoke into an already heavily peated malt, which created a dark murky liquid. So we redistilled it in a tabletop still.
Yeah, I was looking at that. Yeah. That's a heavily modified tabletop still.
Well, what came out, we affectionately refer to as dragon's breath.
That smells like it's still on fire.
Would you believe it's 100 proof? The smokiness is so intense it overrides most people's perception.
Yeah, it doesn't smell like alcohol. I don't smell the alcohol.
It's
That's
terrible.
incredible. Yeah, I can't imagine that actually tastes good. But it's very impressive.
That's intellectually interesting,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
utterly undrinkable. Yeah. And don't ask me what the ppm is. This is not the usual method of getting your peat into your
A
whiskey.
lot, yeah.
We have run it through the GC now. We have our own, which is very exciting. So we've got a chromatogram for it, and every spike on there is just... But we have a boat to catch.
All right.
This way.
Yeah.